Deep within every human being lies an invisible power, an inexhaustible fountain of creation, yet most of us forget it. Allowing fear, anxiety, and urgency to obscure its light, this journey unveils an unchanging spiritual principle. What Joseph Murphy called the perfect method of healing, it is not a quick formula, nor an endless repetition, but the art of planting a clear impression, releasing it completely, and allowing infinite intelligence to carry out the rest. Each part of this 16-chapter journey will guide you from awareness to practice, from planting the seed to living in harmony, as though you had already received, until you realize that the law of spirit has never failed. It has only been waiting for you to enter into peace and conviction. The introduction to the perfect method of healing, the unchanging spiritual principle of Joseph Murphy that brings healing, prosperity, and harmony to every area of life, rests upon one core truth: to access the infinite intelligence of the subconscious mind through scientific prayer and genuine faith. In the endless current of life, mankind has always searched for a remedy that could strike at the very root of suffering, whether physical or mental. People run to medicine, to philosophy, to fleeting promises, yet are left disheartened because the results remain on the surface. Amidst all this turmoil, there exists an eternal spiritual principle, an inner law that never changes regardless of time or circumstance. Joseph Murphy named this principle the perfect method of healing. It is not the hollow repetition of words, nor the performance of an outward ritual, but the silent operation of infinite intelligence within the subconscious when one plants into it a clear impression, an unshakable faith, and then rests in inner peace. The perfect method of healing does not discriminate who you are, what religion you belong to, or what circumstances you face, for it belongs to the divine order imprinted in every human soul. Just as the seed inevitably germinates when planted in fertile soil, the subconscious always responds when impressed with strong images and emotions. Yet for this method to manifest in life, three inseparable foundations must be understood: the infinite intelligence of the subconscious, the art of scientific prayer, and the power of true faith. The infinite intelligence of the subconscious is a treasure of creativity, constantly at work, though you seldom notice it. It regulates your heartbeat, regenerates your cells, heals your wounds, and it also shapes your external circumstances according to what you truly believe. When you sow into it seeds of fear, anxiety, and insecurity, the harvest is failure, sickness, and poverty. But when you sow seeds of peace, images of success, and feelings of love, it returns experiences in perfect correspondence. This law never errs. That is why Murphy called it perfect, for it does not rely on anyone's opinion, nor on luck, but is as certain as the sunrise each morning. The only condition is that you must know how to sow rightly and release completely. The art of scientific prayer is not begging or pleading. It is not a cry to an outside force for favors, but an inward affirmation declared as though already accomplished. Scientific prayer paints a clear image, charged with feeling, and impresses it upon the subconscious as a present reality. The farmer does not sow a seed and then worry if it will grow. He trusts the law of growth. Likewise, scientific prayer is to sow once with absolute conviction and then rest, knowing infinite intelligence is at work. True faith is the final pillar, not a fragile hope, but a resolute certainty, without a shadow of doubt. It is the faith that no longer asks when, no longer checks nervously for results, but rests in the assurance that what was affirmed is already taking shape in the unseen. When your mind ceases resistance, when your emotions no longer contradict, the subconscious receives the command wholly and begins to externalize it To see this principle in life, consider the evidence. A sick man who constantly laments his weakness is sowing weakness into his subconscious, and his body declines further. But if he changes, if each night before sleep he relaxes and affirms that infinite intelligence is renewing every cell, imagines himself healthy, feels the joy of life, then the subconscious responds with restoration. A poor man who continually speaks of lack imprints, lack upon his mind, and the condition remains, but when he plants the image of overflowing accounts, feels abundance, and believes that he is surrounded by an infinite supply, then doors of opportunity open. This is not luck, but the law of mind. Murphy called this method perfect because it cannot fail if truly followed. All failure comes from misunderstanding the law, from not knowing how to release, or from holding in a conflict. The law itself never fails. Only human misinterpretation. That is why the perfect method of healing becomes a spiritual compass pointing you to the one true path. Impress the subconscious with faith, then rest in peace. Some, after years of practice, still see no result because they think repetition is required. Yet the subconscious does not respond to number, but to depth. One affirmation spoken with conviction is worth more than 1,000 empty words. One vivid image filled with emotion carries greater power than endless vague imagining. When you understand this, you will cease the anxious begging, the strained repetition, and instead adopt an attitude of serenity, gratitude, and unwavering trust. Remember, the perfect method of healing does not come by force, but by the union of conscious and subconscious. When the conscious mind paints the desired picture, the emotions fuse with it, and the subconscious accepts it without resistance, the law operates. Then, as surely as spring returns, the result appears. You do not need to know how it will come. You only need to know with certainty that it has already come. In every aspect of life, health, finances, love, and inner peace, the perfect method of healing can be applied. It makes no choice, no distinction, for the subconscious does not reason or compare. It only executes the blueprint impressed upon it, and if that blueprint is engraved with faith, with vivid imagery, with decisive feeling, it must become reality. This is the law. The law cannot err. The perfect method of healing is the art of the spiritual sower. You sow with definite affirmations, with complete images, with strong emotions, and then you let go. The soil performs the rest. Learn to sow once, sow rightly, and sow in peace. That is the shortest path to healing, prosperity, and harmony. When you grasp and live by this principle, you will no longer chase temporary formulas, no longer repeat lifelessly, no longer worry when results seem delayed. Instead, you will walk calmly, knowing every word you planned carries infinite power. And when you sleep in trust, awaken in gratitude, and live in peace, the outer world will in turn reflect it. This is the perfect method of healing, the timeless remedy beyond decay. The key that unlocks health, prosperity, and harmony, Joseph Murphy's enduring gift to those bold enough to believe and to practice. When you have done everything right and still see no result, it is not the law that has failed, but your understanding of it. Excessive effort, constant examination, endless repetition obstruct the invisible current already at work. The secret is creative rest. There are times when you have done everything the books prescribe, everything the teachers instruct. You affirm faithfully, you visualize in detail, you pray with all sincerity, you keep your discipline, You repeat day after day, yet the result remains unmoved. In such a moment, many rush to conclude that the law has failed, that perhaps their faith is not enough, that God remains silent, but the truth is altogether different. The law never fails. Only our way of working with it can go astray. When you act too much, you unknowingly interfere with the invisible current that had already begun to flow. It is like a river moving smoothly, but you heap stones across its course and block its waters. You imagine that doing more, repeating more, checking more will hasten the result, but it is this very striving that delays it. The subconscious is not like a child needing constant persuasion. It is like fertile soil that requires only one healthy seed, planted correctly, and then left for the soil, the water, and the light to perform the rest. The farmer does not dig up the seed each day to check, for he knows that constant interference would ruin its growth. Yet in the realm of spirit, man often makes this very mistake, repeating tensely, affirming while doubting, declaring while peaking to see if results appear. This is nothing less than pulling the seed from the soil before it can sprout. There is a secret known by the wise of past generations. After sufficient action has been taken, you must step back. You must let the invisible current finish its part. They call this creative rest. Troward named it the law of reversed effort. Coué emphasized gentle faith rather than mechanical repetition. Emerson wrote that nature never hurries yet, all is accomplished. And Scripture declares, "Be still and know that I am God." Creative rest is not surrender in despair. It is profound trust that what has been sown is received and now must simply unfold. Think of yourself. Have you ever clung so tightly to your desire that it became a tension in your mind? You repeated the affirmation again and again, yet your heart trembled. You visualized endlessly, yet checked constantly if it had come to pass. In truth, you were not sowing faith, you were sowing fear and doubt, so the result did not appear, not because the law erred, but because you obstructed it. What the law requires is not ceaseless interference, but complete rest after an affirmation spoken in sincere faith. I want to ask you something in this very moment so that you may pause and look within. How many times in life have you truly sat still after praying, after affirming, and simply breathed out with the certainty that all was finished? Or have you been drawn again and again into the cycle of checking, worrying, and endless repetition? You can be honest with yourself, for the answer reveals why some of your desires have never been fulfilled. If you're hearing me now, I know you are present here, journeying through the discovery of the subconscious power. Thank you for listening. And I want you to remember with clarity that the moment you learn the art of release is the moment you allow the unseen river to flow freely. Creative rest is the final key that opens the door to accomplishment, yet it is the most delicate truth that many overlook. Sow the seed in faith, then let the soil of the subconscious do the rest. When you know how to step back, you have stepped into the highest power of the law, the ultimate formula, a clear impression plus complete release. Troward spoke of it as the law of reversed effort. Emile Coué as believing gently. Emerson as nature never hurrying. And Scripture declares, "Be still and know that I am God." The ultimate formula of all spiritual healing is so simple that mankind often overlooks it. It is not found in elaborate rituals, nor in endless repetition. It is nothing less than the union of a vivid impression with absolute release. When the conscious mind paints the desired image in living color, when feeling breathes reality into that inner picture, the subconscious accepts it And when you step away from the process in peace, without clinging, without doubting, the law begins its work. That is the moment you have entrusted the seed to the soil, and the rest belongs to infinite intelligence. Thomas Troward expressed this principle through the law of reversed effort. He said, the harder you try to force, the more you obstruct the result. Outward strain only increases resistance, while true power lies in relaxing and trusting. A thought wholly accepted by the subconscious manifests of itself without compulsion. Troward likened it to breathing. You cannot prolong life by inhaling strenuously, but by relaxing into the natural rhythm, life continues. In the realm of spirit, every forced effort defeats itself. While calm trust clears the way for the miracle, Émile Coué, the French healer, saw the same principle in treating his patients. He discovered that it was not hollow repetition that brought results, but the gentle moment of belief, almost effortless, when a patient whispered to himself every day, in every way, I am getting better and better. The power lay not in the words, but in the soft faith behind them. Not tension, not compulsion, but like a subtle breeze carrying the message into the depths of the subconscious. Coué emphasized that one affirmation believed lightly had more power than hundreds spoken under strain. Ralph Waldo Emerson, in his immortal essays, echoed this law in the language of nature. He wrote that nature never hurries, yet everything is accomplished. A seed does not strain to sprout. A flower does not labor anxiously to bloom. A river does not rush nervously, and yet all is completed in its season. So too, when you plant a vivid image in faith, you need not push the process. The absence of hurry is the evidence of belief. Whoever is restless has not yet believed. True faith always bears the form of serenity, of patience, of rest. Scripture condensed the essence in one brief but piercing command. Be still and know that I am God. This is not moral advice, but spiritual formula. To be still is to cease struggling, to cease interfering. To know is to be utterly assured. I am means present, already accomplished. When you can dwell in that stillness and knowing, without waiting, without worrying, the subconscious receives the command as an irreversible decree. Imagine this in a living example. A woman longs to be healed of chronic illness. At first she prays nightly, but her heart overflows with fear. She repeats again and again, I am healthy, yet her mind clings to images of disease. No result came, only when she learned to let go, to picture herself walking in the sunlight, to feel the joy of vitality, and then to release and sleep in peace. Did the subconscious accept it? One clear impression, joined with complete release, created the turning point. Her body slowly recovered, not by tense affirmations of the past, but by that gentle moment of trust. The man who desires prosperity finds the same truth. If he repeats, I am wealthy, while his eyes dart nervously at an empty account, the subconscious receives only lack. But if once he imagines himself signing a great contract, feels the overflowing joy, and breathes out in rest, then the message of wealth is planted. Faith is not the effort to believe. It is the feeling of reality already present. Thus the ultimate formula never changes. One clear, strong, complete impression of image and emotion, followed by perfect release and peace. To do it rightly once is worth more than to do it wrongly 1,000 times. And when you master this formula, you understand that scientific prayer is not a ritual, but a creative art. You carve an image in the mind, you give it life with feeling, Then you step back and let infinite intelligence build. This is the law of reversed effort taught by Truard, the gentle faith of Coué, the unhurried calm of Emerson, and the command of Scripture all converge on one point. The power does not lie in doing much, but in doing once with the whole soul, then leaving the law to fulfill its part. This is the key that opens every door. This is the ultimate formula, simple yet invincible, for those wise enough to release after they have sown. Chapter 1, Spiritual Healing is Impression, not repetition. Spiritual healing is not about repeating an affirmation like a machine. It is not the number of times that matters, but the power of the impression engraved upon the subconscious. The subconscious does not care how many times you have spoken the words. It only receives what is delivered with vivid imagery and unwavering feeling. One affirmation, deeply impressed with faith, is worth more than hundreds of hollow repetitions. Jesus gave the formula in Mark 11:24. Whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Asterisk, he did not say to repeat until exhaustion, nor to strive until results appear. He gave only one command: believe that you have received. In those few words lies the secret of the entire spiritual law. When you truly believe that your prayer is already fulfilled, the subconscious accepts it as reality and immediately begins to arrange the circumstances to bring it into the visible world. A man once came to me in bankruptcy. He had read many books and studied many methods. Each day he affirmed dozens of times, I am prosperous, I am successful, asterisk, but month after month his finances remained the same. When I asked how many times he affirmed daily, he answered, sometimes 50. I told him, that is the problem. You do not need 50 times. You only need one time with faith. Then I showed him how to sit in silence, relax his body, imagine a check written in his name, feel the joy as though he had already received it, and afterward release it in peace. Within 2 weeks, he was offered a new job at double his previous salary. It was not the 50 repetitions that brought change, but one single impression planted rightly. This shows that the subconscious is never persuaded by lifeless repetition. It is not a stubborn child needing endless reminders, but a fertile soil requiring only one strong seed to begin the cycle of growth. If you plant a healthy seed, the soil completes the work. You do not need to sow again and again, much less dig it up to check. One seed rightly sown is greater than 1,000 sown in error. Ask yourself, how many times have you affirmed and visualized, yet still carried doubt inside? How many times have you recited positive words, only to continue living with the same old fears? Are you truly impressing the subconscious, or are you only repeating? This is the question you must answer honestly, for it determines the results in your life. If you are listening now, I want you to leave a word in the comments. You can write times I am ready to change, asterisk, or simply type the number times 1 asterisk. So I know you are present and walking this journey. Thank you for being here. For your listening itself is proof that these principles are being sown into the soil of your soul. In the art of spiritual healing, the quality of one affirmation matters far more than the quantity. A single statement spoken from peace, alive with imagery and feeling, is like a deep engraving upon the tablet of the subconscious. Lifeless repetition is like writing in sand, erased by the next breeze. But one impression made with your whole being is like carving in stone. Nothing can erase it. Remember, the subconscious does not respond to force, but to conviction. It is a faithful mirror of what you truly believe, not of what you try to repeat. If faith is not yet present, spend time in stillness, nurture the inner image, let feeling merge with it, and then declare once. In that moment, you have done enough. The rest, infinite intelligence will complete. Do not be the one who scatters hundreds of weak seeds in doubt. Be the one who plants a single strong seed in certainty. That one is enough to yield a rich harvest. When you do this, you stop clinging, you stop hurrying, you stop trying to prove, and instead you live in the peace of one who has already received. That peace itself is the surest sign that the law has accepted your command and is at work. Try it now. Sit down, close your eyes, breathe deeply, paint in your mind the image you desire, so clear that you could almost touch it. Feel the joy as though it is real already. Then affirm once with absolute certainty that it is done. Afterward, rise and live your day in peace. You do not need to repeat. You only need to know that the seed has been planted, and when you live in that certainty, what you desire will find its way to you. This is the power of impression. This is the essence of spiritual healing, and this is the reminder that you never need to do much. You need only to do it right. Once, but with your whole being. Chapter 2, the practice of a true impression. To create a right impression upon the subconscious, you must first know how to prepare. The human mind is like the surface of a lake. If the waters are disturbed, no image can be clearly reflected. When you are tense, hurried, or restless, your affirmation will bounce back without engraving itself deeply. The first step, therefore, is not to speak the prayer, but to quiet the soul, sit down, release every task, breathe deeply and evenly, relax the body, let the inner noise gradually subside until serenity opens within. It is in that state that the subconscious becomes fertile soil, ready to receive. Once stillness is present, then you sow the affirmation. The affirmation must be short, without detour, like a decisive command. One clear declaration holds more power than a chain of elaborate words, for the subconscious does not analyze sentences. It only receives a certainty clothed in feeling. If you desire health, speak with full faith. The infinite intelligence within me heals and renews my body now. Asterisk. It need not be long, only clear. At the same time, picture yourself vibrant, your body strong, your eyes bright, your breath light, your face radiant. When image and emotion unite, the affirmation becomes an indelible impression. If you seek prosperity, prepare your affirmation as though issuing an unbreakable decree. Say, the infinite supply of the universe flows into my life. I am surrounded by abundance and prosperity. As you speak, imagine opening a bank account filled with abundance. Feel the relief and peace of one who no longer worries about money. That feeling is the seal that convinces the subconscious of its reality. You do not sow with words alone. You sow with a full inner experience. Look to the example of Jesus. He never used many words. He did not beg in fear, nor repeat in anxiety. Before calling Lazarus from the tomb, he simply said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me." Asterisk. He gave thanks before the result appeared, for within him the result was already complete. Then he issued one commanding order, "Ah, Lazarus, come forth." Asterisk, brief, simple, yet filled with authority. That certainty was the key that compelled both the subconscious and the universe to obey. Remember, never allow your affirmation to become lifeless. A word without emotion is like an arrow without force. It falls as soon as it leaves the bow. But when spoken from an inner state, alive with image and vibration, each word becomes an arrow driven deep into the subconscious. The evidence is immediate. After a true affirmation, you will feel a change, a sudden peace, a sense of lightness, as though a burden has lifted, that is the sign the impression has been received. It is vital to distinguish between right affirmation and wrong affirmation. Many say repeatedly times, I am healthy, asterisk, while inwardly imagining disease. Many chant times, I am wealthy, asterisk, while their hearts tremble under debt. They think they are sowing, but in truth they are canceling themselves. A false affirmation is not only useless, but engraves fear even deeper. That is why before opening your lips, you must ensure that your heart has painted the desired picture and felt its joy. Only then will your words carry creative power. Right practice also requires restraint. Not hundreds of times, but once with your whole being. When you have sown perfectly, release it and live in trust. Do not dig up the seed to see if it has sprouted. Do not repeat in nervousness. As the farmer trusts the soil to grow, so you trust the subconscious to execute. That resting itself is part of the impression. It testifies that you believe, and therefore the law operates. You may practice at night before sleep, or in the early morning upon waking. Those are the hours when the conscious mind is quiet and the subconscious most open. Sit still, breathe, find peace. Then sow one short, clear affirmation with image and emotion. Do not prolong. Only a few concentrated minutes. Then allow sleep or the new day to carry that impression deeper. This simple practice holds more power than all strained effort. Spiritual healing is not a battle, but an act of creation. It does not come through struggle, but through the unity of image, feeling, and faith. One short affirmation, one decisive command, one moment of thanksgiving before the result is seen together. They form an impression strong enough to move circumstances. When you understand this, you will cease vain repetition. You will cease anxious striving, and you will begin to walk with the calm assurance of one who has planted the seed in the right soil. And by the unchanging law of life, that seed must bear fruit in its season. Chapter 3, the fertile soil of the subconscious. The subconscious is like a deep field of soil where every seed may germinate. But that soil only opens when the surface of the mind is calm. If the ground is covered with stones and weeds, the seed cannot take root. In the same way, when the conscious mind is full of tension, anxiety, and conflict, no matter how many affirmations you attempt to plant, they merely rebound rather than sink deeply. The fertile soil of the soul is formed only in stillness. It is this quiet that allows the subconscious to receive, to store, and to nurture an impression into reality. Modern science shows that when a person breathes slowly and deeply, the body enters a natural state of rest. The sympathetic nervous system yields to the balance of the parasympathetic. The heartbeat steadies, blood pressure lowers, and the brain shifts into alpha waves, the rhythm near to dreaming but still awake. Alpha is the gateway to the subconscious. In that moment, the mind no longer resists. Emotions grow gentle, and the spiritual seed falls into the hidden ground. This is why every affirmation only gains power when sown in quiet, never in restlessness or haste. There was once a wife who lived in fear and anger toward her husband. She repeated daily phrases such as, times he will change, he will love, asterisk, yet always in tears and bitterness. No seed took root, for she was planting in the barren ground of a troubled mind. When she sought guidance, the first step was not more affirmations, but learning to breathe slowly and release. 3 times a day she sat still, inhaled deeply, held for a few seconds, and exhaled gently. As her emotions softened, she affirmed in peace. The peace of God reigns in my home. Asterisk, each word no longer bounced back, but sank to the depths. Within weeks, the atmosphere of her house shifted. Her husband became gentler, and harmony returned. What changed was not only her circumstances, but the soil of her heart, made fertile for seeds of love to grow. This is the power of the inner voice, not merely words you hear, but the quiet space you return to. If you affirm only with your lips while the mind is noisy, that voice is but an echo fading. But when you breathe slowly, relax, and let the heart grow still, the inner voice becomes living water to the subconscious soil, and every word spoken carries enduring life. Fertile soil is never born of strain, but of readiness. When you sit down, close your eyes, place your hands on your lap, relax your shoulders, and let the breath flow naturally. Your mind gradually falls into a clear space. Worries dissolve. Stray thoughts drift like thin clouds. In that moment, the subconscious is like a still lake, ready to mirror the image you cast upon it. One short affirmation, joined with a vivid picture, becomes an imprint. No storm can erase. People often think they must try hard, speak strongly for the subconscious to listen, but the truth is the opposite. The more you strain, the more agitated the mind becomes. The harder you push, the harder the soil. Real strength lies in relaxation. When you cease struggling, when you stop demanding, then the subconscious opens and receives. In surrender, the seed is given its chance to root. Scripture says, "Be still and know that I am God." Asterisk, not in noise, not in desperate pleading, but in silence you discover the divine presence. That is the very state the subconscious requires to accept an impression. One affirmation sown in peace can alter a life, while hundreds sown in worry drift away in vain. Therefore, when you seek spiritual healing, prepare the soil first. Practice slow breathing. Release each muscle. Allow the mind to settle into alpha. Then every affirmation becomes a seed falling into fertile ground, watered and lit until it must sprout. Never neglect this preparation, for it is the doorway to every miracle. Someone may say, "I have no time. I need quick affirmations." Asterisk, but remember, just as no farmer can plant on cracked, dry soil and expect a harvest, you cannot plant in a restless mind and expect results. Better to spend 5 minutes preparing the ground and sow one affirmation in stillness than to repeat hundreds in tension. The soil determines the seed, and your mind determines the strength of your affirmation. The fertile soil of the subconscious is not outside, it is within you. It opens whenever you pause, breathe, and allow peace to enter. In that silence, your inner voice becomes a flowing river, carrying the seed deep into the invisible earth. And by the unchanging law, that seed will sprout, grow, and bear fruit in your life. Chapter 4, The Art of Once and Well. Asterisk, asterisk. The art of spiritual healing does not lie in how many times you repeat an affirmation, but in the quality of the impression you leave upon the subconscious. Some imagine that if they say it hundreds of times each day, results must come faster. But the truth is that one right affirmation planted with a vivid image, genuine emotion, and absolute faith carries more power than 1,000 lifeless repetitions. This is the art of once and well, where strength is measured not by quantity but by depth. When you imagine a scene vividly, in detail, as though it has already occurred, the subconscious accepts it as reality. The clearer and more lifelike the picture, the deeper the engraving. Yet image alone is not enough. It must be joined with authentic emotion. Emotion is the life of the impression, the current that animates the image in the mind. When you see yourself healthy, let joy course through your body as though recovery is already yours. When you see yourself prosperous, feel the peace of one who no longer worries about lack. This emotional charge transforms the image into a command for the subconscious. Absolute faith is the final and foundational element. An affirmation may be vivid and emotional, but if doubt lingers, the impression weakens. The subconscious reflects only what you truly believe, not what you force yourself to say. When you sow with unwavering faith, you no longer fret over when or how the result will appear. You simply know the seed has been planted and must bear fruit. This is the state of the farmer. After sowing, he does not dig up the soil to check if the seed has sprouted. He trusts the law of growth to do the rest. The parable of the sower in Scripture is a perfect image of this principle. Some seeds fell by the wayside, and the birds devoured them. Some fell on rocky soil, sprang up quickly, but with no root they withered. Some fell among thorns, choked and fruitless. But some fell on good ground and bore fruit 30-fold, 60-fold, even 100-fold. This is not merely agriculture. It is the story of every soul. The image you sow is the seed, and the state of your mind is the soil. If you sow in doubt, anxiety, and impatience, the seed is suffocated. But if you sow in peace, in conviction, in love, the harvest is abundant. One person may say, I have affirmed 1,000 times and nothing has happened. Asterisk, while another affirms once and sees change. The difference lies not in number, but in quality. The first sowed in barren soil, where every seed died. The second sowed in fertile soil, where one seed was enough for a harvest. The art of once and well is therefore the art of preparing the mind as good soil, then planting with vivid image, genuine feeling, and absolute faith. Recall a moment when you truly believed something without doubt. Perhaps the day you knew with certainty you would pass an exam, or the instant you felt sure an opportunity would come, and it did. That is the power of once and well. The subconscious requires no further proof. It only needs one complete conviction. When you reach that state, what you affirm must become reality. The great danger is impatience. Many, not seeing results immediately, sow again, repeating in worry, and thereby cancel the power of the first impression. They are like the farmer who digs up the seed to see if it has sprouted, destroying its growth. The art of once and well demands patience, a steady trust that the law has received the command and is silently at work. If you grasp this truth, it will transform your practice. Instead of spending hours repeating lifeless words, you will spend minutes preparing the soil in stillness, then plant one seed with image, emotion, and faith. Afterward, you will walk in peace, living as though it were already true. And when you do this, life mirrors exactly what you have sown. The art of once and well is not a novel trick, but the distilled essence of all spiritual teaching. It reminds us that power lies not in doing much, but in doing rightly. When you learn to plant one perfect seed in the subconscious, you hold the key to health, prosperity, and peace. This is the truth affirmed alike by Scripture and by the thinkers of every age. Chapter 5, the case study of the young actor. A young actor once came to me in despair. For months he had affirmed, visualized, and repeated again and again that he would land his dream role, yet every audition ended in rejection. To his eyes, every door was shut. When I asked how he had been practicing, he confessed that morning, noon, and night he pictured himself on stage, receiving applause, repeating the scene hundreds of times, but nothing changed. I told him the problem was not lack of effort, but that he had been sowing in the soil of lack, instead of the soil of possession, I taught him a principle many overlook. True healing comes from possession, not from deficiency. When you repeat, I want success, I want to be chosen, asterisk hidden within those words is the feeling of not yet having. The subconscious does not hear your words. It hears your hidden state. If that state is lack, then lack is what you sow. He did not need to multiply repetitions. He needed to change his position. I showed him how to sit quietly, relax completely, breathe deeply, and let his mind grow still. Then, instead of imagining a long journey, he was to see only one final scene, the end already achieved. He closed his eyes and pictured himself shaking the director's hand, hearing congratulations, feeling the joy of the dream fulfilled. The key was to live in that scene as if it had truly happened. I insisted that the image be clear, the emotion genuine, and then he must release it. No more repetitions, not checking no doubts. One planting like that was enough. He did exactly as instructed. He no longer repeated endlessly, but carried within a certainty that the scene was complete. And the miracle came. Within 3 weeks, he received a call from a major director offering him the very role he had once failed to secure. He testified that the moment mirrored exactly the image he had seen in his mind. One single impression, vivid and alive, accomplished what thousands of doubtful repetitions never could. This is the essence of healing. From possession, you must stand from the place of already having, already being, already receiving, not from the place of lack, waiting, or wanting. When you affirm from deficiency, you unconsciously command the subconscious to continue your present state. But when you affirm from possession, you awaken the spiritual law that always reflects what you believe to be true. This principle applies in every field. The one who seeks health must not say, I will be healed, asterisk for such words, still carry the image of sickness. Instead, see the body as already whole, feel the ease in your step, the joy of deep breathing, and affirm inwardly, divine life flows through me now. Asterisk, the one who seeks prosperity must not say, I will have money. Asterisk, for the subconscious hears only lack. Instead, live in the feeling of abundance. Imagine the account already overflowing and affirm, the infinite supply pours through my life now. When practiced rightly, you discover that the quality of one impression outweighs the quantity of 1,000 repetitions. An affirmation united with a clear image, genuine emotion, and absolute faith planted in stillness is like a seed in good soil. It must root, grow, and bear fruit in its season. Meanwhile, hundreds of repetitions from a state of lack are like seeds scattered on stone, never sprouting. The parable of the sower makes this plain. Only the seeds that fall into good ground bear fruit, 30-fold, 60-fold, 100-fold. The good ground is the state of your mind. Sow in worry, restlessness, or doubt, and the seed dies. Sow in certainty, in joy, as though already fulfilled, and the harvest multiplies. The young actor's story proves the law. He abandoned the habit of endless repetition and chose instead one perfect impression, the final scene, the complete emotion, the unshakable faith, and the release. That is the art of spiritual healing. One such moment is worth more than 1,000 uncertain ones. His result stands as a reminder that you do not need many, you need only one, but one done rightly. Chapter 6, the silent imposition. Silent imposition is one of the most delicate arts of spiritual healing. It requires no many words, no endless affirmations, but a complete inner shift from the state of desire to the state of possession. The key lies in the difference between thinking times about times the result and thinking times from times the result. When you think about it, you stand at a distance, seeing the outcome as something outside your reach. But when you think from it, you have stepped into the scene itself, living in it as your present identity. The sacred name times I am times revealed to Moses is the key to silent imposition. I am times does not speak of something that will happen, nor of a fragile hope, but of a present certainty. I am health times means that in this very moment, I am one with the fullness of life. I am prosperity times means that right now, I stand in abundance. The subconscious understands only the language of the present. It does not respond to times I will, I hope, I wish, asterisk, but only to times I am, asterisk. And when a new identity is accepted, the entire external world must mirror that identity. Neil Gora, one of the masters of this principle, declared that you must not only imagine what you desire, but embody the scene as though it is already finished. Do not stand in the audience watching yourself perform. Be the one standing on the stage. Do not simply picture money in your account. Feel yourself holding the card, withdrawing the cash, hearing the hum of the counting machine, sensing the wealth as a present reality. When you embody, you are no longer a dreamer. You are the central figure in the completed scene. At that moment, the subconscious is convinced, for it does not distinguish between actual experience and vividly felt imagination. Consider a businessman preparing for an important meeting. If he sits in worry, thinking about the meeting, he will imagine failure in countless ways. The subconscious will accept those images and bring them forth. But if he practices silent imposition, he chooses an entirely different path. He does not think about signing the contract. He thinks from it being signed. In his mind, he walks out of the meeting room, shakes hands with his partner, feels relief, hears himself calling his wife to announce the deal's success. He is no longer at the starting point. He has returned from the result, and so his subconscious records the result as reality. Silent imposition de mon consistency. You do not need mechanical repetition. You need only one perfect embodiment and release. But from then on, you must live as the one you have affirmed yourself to be. The one who has declared times I am healthy times cannot continue living as a sickly man. The one who has declared times I am prosperous times cannot continue complaining of lack. Harmony between image, feeling, and action is what seals the impression upon the subconscious. What is special about silent imposition is that it requires no sound. You need not speak aloud, for the subconscious is not persuaded by volume, but by state. A person may sit in silence, yet inwardly feel complete peace. And that prayer is more powerful than 1,000 cries. This is why the wise withdrew into quiet before prayer. In silence, they fully embodied the desired result, and when they emerged, the outer world was compelled to align with their new state. Imagine you long for a new home. If you only say, I will have a house, asterisk the subconscious hears distance. But if you sit down, close your eyes, and picture yourself opening the door, stepping into the bright living room, smelling the fresh wood, hearing your footsteps on the floor, then your whole being vibrates in the reality that the house is already yours. That is silent imposition. You need not proclaim it aloud, for your inner state is the loudest declaration. The principle of healing from possession rather than from lack is contained within this art. Thinking about the result usually arises from deficiency, while thinking from the result arises from possession. When you think about, you are wishing. When you think from, you are having. And that small difference is the line between failure and success. One impression from the state of possession, even once, is stronger than 1,000 affirmations from the state of lack. Silent imposition is the voice without sound. The inner declaration that rises when you embody your desire. It is the new identity you put on. The times I am times lived in fullness. When you understand and practice it, you realize you do not need to beg nor repeat endlessly. You only need to turn inward, live in the completed scene, and then release. And the spiritual law will accomplish the rest. Chapter 7, the technique of release. The technique of release is the summit of mature faith. It is no longer about praying more, affirming more, or imagining more, but about letting go of the process with full assurance that the law is already in operation. Release is not abandonment, nor is it surrendering hope. Release is the silent confirmation that what you desire is already yours, already complete, and needs no further interference. It is in this state of release that the subconscious begins its deepest and most certain work. Jesus described this in simple yet profound language in Mark 4:26. The kingdom of God is as if a man should cast seed into the ground and should sleep and rise night and day, and the seed should spring and grow up. He knoweth not how. This is the unchanging law of spirit. After the seed is sown, the only task is to sleep and trust that it will grow. You need not watch it by the hour, nor tear open the soil to check. The silent law of growth will handle all worry and restlessness, only harm the seed. But rest allows it to root and rise. There was a mother who demonstrated this principle perfectly. Her son had been sentenced to prison, and every hope seemed closed. She had affirmed many times, "My son is free." Yet fear and tears weakened the words. One day, she was instructed to pray once more with full faith, then to leave it alone. She sat down, pictured her son walking out of the prison gates, embracing her in peace. She felt the joy of reunion and whispered her thanksgiving in silence. Then she let go, never mentioning it again, carrying only gratitude. Two weeks later, her son's case was reviewed, and he was granted pardon, not because she had done more, but because she had learned to release. This is the power of the inner voice, not merely a voice you hear, but the inner space you return to. The inner voice is not just the sound of affirmations, but the atmosphere of rest. When you release, you return to that quiet where there is no restlessness, no struggle. That silence itself speaks louder than any cry, declaring that what you asked has been given. Many think if they stop affirming, stop praying, the subconscious will forget, but this is error. The subconscious does not need constant supervision. It needs one sure impression. Once the impression has been sown with image, feeling, and faith, repeating in anxiety only disturbs the soil. Release is not indifference, but absolute trust in the law of life. When you know you have planted, rest itself is the evidence of faith. This truth is seen in daily life. A farmer does not sit all night watching the field. He trusts the soil, the water, the sunlight, so you too need not monitor each hour for signs of change. You need only live in the assurance that the seed in your subconscious has begun its journey. The moment you stop interfering, the invisible process moves freely. Release is also the art of recognizing the sign. When you have truly prayed, you will feel a peace descend without reason. That peace is the mark that the subconscious has received. To pray further at that point is only to deny what has already been accepted. The task is to stop and honor the sign. Peace is not emptiness. It is confirmation that the desire is already formed in the unseen. From then, your only work is to live as one who has, not as one who still seeks some fear. That release means loss of control. The truth is, you never control the creative process. Your work is only to sow. The rest belongs to the law. When you release, you return to your rightful role, the sower, not the one who forces the seed to grow. Release gives infinite intelligence freedom to work, opening paths your reason could never design. In this technique, gratitude plays a central role. When you give thanks in silence, you confirm that the desire is accomplished. Thanksgiving is not a plea. It is a proclamation that it is finished. Just as Jesus thanked the Father before Lazarus came forth, so must you give thanks before seeing the result. In the spiritual realm, gratitude beforehand is the ultimate proof of faith. Therefore, when you have done enough, stop. When you have sown the seed, let it rest. When you have affirmed, walk in peace. Release is not an afterthought. It is the decisive act that transforms impression into reality. In releasing, you prove your belief, and because you believe, the law moves. This is the art of the mature soul, the one who knows that all good is already given, and whose only task is to confirm it and rest in that truth. Chapter 8. When the world has passed its verdict, when the world pronounces its verdict, when medicine declares there is no hope, when the court stamps its judgment, when employment ends with a dismissal letter, many believe it is the end. Yet, in the spiritual realm, no verdict has final power. Unless you accept it in your mind, only what you allow into the subconscious becomes law over your life. Any decree from outside, whether spoken by doctor, judge, or employer, has power only if you agree with it. If you choose another truth, if you write a new verdict within, the law of spirit will answer to that verdict. This process holds two clear steps. First, you must deny the authority of the old judgment, not with anger or outward protest, but with a firm inward declaration. I do not accept this. It has no power over my life. Asterisk. This denial is not evasion of reality, but the stripping of false words of their authority. Left unchallenged in the mind, they root, but when you deny them, you uproot their power. After denial, the second step is to affirm a new truth, clear and certain. You must rewrite the verdict in the language of spirit. That new decree must be spoken in peace, not haste, accompanied by a vivid image and a feeling of conviction. A woman once came to me in tears. She had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. The doctor declared nothing more could be done. Fear had sunk deep into her soul. I told her that the verdict of medicine is not the verdict of spirit. I taught her the step of denial. Twice daily she sat quietly, breathed deeply, and affirmed, I do not accept this diagnosis. It has no authority over my body. Asterisk. Then she moved to affirmation. Divine life flows through every cell. I am whole, radiant, and filled with vitality. Asterisk. She pictured herself walking in the park, breathing deeply, smiling into the morning sun. 2 months later, the doctors were astonished. The tumor had vanished. The verdict written within her overruled the verdict. Outside, another case was a middle-aged man dismissed from his job. The letter of termination declared bitterly that he had no more chance. In despair, he recalled the principle. He sat down read the letter once more, tore it, and inwardly denied, "These words do not define me. I do not accept this decree." Asterisk. Then he wrote a new verdict. "Spirit guides me to my perfect work. I am valued and prosperous in my new place." Asterisk. He imagined himself stepping into a new office, hearing greetings, feeling confidence overflow. Within 10 days, he was hired into a better role with higher pay. The world had not changed its mind. He had rewritten the judgment in his own soul. The principle is clear. The subconscious is the executor. It does not choose. It only builds what you accept as truth. Accept the diagnosis, and it builds disease. Accept un employment, and it builds lack. Deny it, and replace it with affirmation. And it builds health and opportunity. This is your power, the power to choose which verdict shall govern your life. Scripture says, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." Asterisk. This is not mere comfort, it is a spiritual formula. Every worldly verdict is a weapon, and you have the right to condemn it, to deny it. When you deny, you neutralize it. When you affirm a new truth, you create another reality, and the subconscious, faithful as ever, builds what you have chosen. Many err by submitting to verdicts simply because they come from authority. They believe the doctor must be right. The court cannot be wrong. The company decides their fate. Yet no authority is higher than the law of spirit within. If you accept it, it is true. If you reject and rewrite, a new result is born. This is the supreme freedom no one can take from you. Therefore, whenever you face a verdict, remember the final power rests with you. Deny with authority, affirm with faith, and live as one who has received the new decree. This practice not only heals bodies, but liberates lives, opening doors where all seemed closed. And when you see the result, you will know that every judgment of the world is temporary. The only verdict with power is the one you accept in your own heart. Chapter 9, the power of wordless thought. The power of wordless thought reaches far beyond what most people imagine. Many believe they must speak endlessly, repeating affirmations hundreds of times to persuade the subconscious. Yet words are but instruments, not the source. The subconscious does not require sound. It responds directly to images fused with emotion. One sustained emotional image, nurtured in silence, holds the force of law, compelling the outer world to obey. Genesis opens with a declaration, "Let there be light," asterisk, but this was not speech as we know it today. When Scripture records that God spoke, it was the focused thought of pure intent, an idea so clear and absolute that it became reality. God has no vocal cords, no sound waves. Creation was by pure thought and perfect consciousness. Here lies the greatest lesson. When your thought is clear enough, strong enough, and charged with feeling, it becomes a reality without a single word. A woman once came to me in pain because her daughter had not spoken to her for years. Every apology, every attempt at conversation had been met with cold silence. She had no words left to use. I showed her how to use wordless thought. Each night she sat quietly, closed her eyes, breathed deeply, and imagined the scene. Her daughter in her arms, both of them weeping with joy, laughter and warmth flowing between them. She prayed no audible prayer, spoke no affirmation. She simply lived in that scene with genuine feeling, as though it was happening now. After 1 month, her daughter reached out, sending a message asking to meet. No words had been spoken, but the image with feeling healed, the deep wound. Do you see? Words can be resisted, but an emotional image cannot. It slips past the defenses of reason straight into the subconscious and plants its seed. When you live wholly within an image, when your heart vibrates as though it were already true, you are issuing an invisible yet irrevocable decree. Wordless thought is the direct current between the conscious and subconscious, bypassing the barrier of language. Ask yourself, have you ever imagined a scene and later it became reality, though you never told anyone? Have you ever felt one intense moment of emotion fused with a vivid image and life turned? That is the proof. A sustained emotional image is the true law. So I ask you, are you daily nurturing a positive image within? Tell me, for your presence in this journey is the inspiration that keeps me sharing. Thank you for listening. And remember, the power lies in the silent voice of your own mind. The key is to cultivate this image consistently. It does not require hours, sometimes only a few minutes a day. But with full attention, sit still, breathe, let the mind grow quiet. Then allow a single scene to arise, the one you most desire. Live in it, feel it, and then release. This is no idle fantasy. It is the planting of a seed in the deepest soil of the soul. The power of wordless thought is an inheritance given to all. It needs no outward proof, no spoken words, only the consistency of image and emotion. Once you learn to use it, you will discover that silence is sometimes the most powerful prayer, for in silence there is no distraction, no resistance, only truth zone, and the spiritual law unfailingly brings it to light. Chapter 10, the seal of peace. There is one unmistakable sign that a spiritual treatment has been received by the subconscious. The appearance of peace without cause. This is not relief because circumstances have shifted, nor joy at hearing good news. Rather, it often comes while outward conditions remain unchanged, with no evidence yet in sight. This peace has no external reason, but it is deep, certain, overflowing. It is the silent assurance that the seed has been planted and is already sprouting in the unseen. A woman from Ohio once wrote to me of her experience. After years of illness and pain, she resolved to attempt a true spiritual treatment. One quiet evening, she sat down, breathed deeply, and pictured her body filled with vitality. She felt the joy of health, saw herself walking outdoors, breathing fresh air, smiling in the sunlight. Then she affirmed with full faith, divine life is flowing through every cell. I am whole and radiant now. Asterisk, she did this once only. Then let go. That night, as she drifted into sleep, she described a strange sensation covering her body. Not a physical change, but a deep calm, as if an unseen hand rested upon her chest, saying, it is well. Asterisk, she slept soundly. And from that day, her health began to improve. Within weeks, doctors found no trace of disease, but in her letter, she emphasized not the healing, but the sign that came first. Peace without cause. This is what many do not yet understand. They wait for external proof to believe their treatment has worked. They examine the body, check the bank account, study others' reactions. And when nothing appears, they worry, then interfere again, repeating, affirming, pleading. Yet each attempt proves they have not truly believed. The subconscious does not require endless reminders. It requires one strong impression. Once the impression is planted, peace will come as the sign it has been accepted. And when peace arrives, any further interference only disturbs the process. Peace without cause is the heartbeat of the closing door. It signals that the work of the conscious mind is finished and the subconscious is now active at this moment. You need not add another word. No further prayer. No repeated affirmation. Your task is to dwell in that peace, to trust absolutely that the law is working. Any extra effort only betrays doubt, and doubt uproots the seed before it sprouts. In Scripture, Jesus gave a clear promise, "My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth." Asterisk. This is not peace dependent on circumstances, but an inner seed. It comes when the soul has laid its burden on infinite intelligence and knows the work is done. It is the strongest confirmation you can receive. This peace cannot be manufactured. You cannot will it into being. It is not self-soothing nor forced calm. It comes naturally, like the sky clearing after a storm. You do not create the blue sky. It appears when the clouds disperse. So peace appears when fear, doubt, and worry have yielded to steadfast faith. The practitioner must learn to recognize this sign and to stop when it appears. Do not pray further. Do not affirm again. Do not check results. Simply walk in quiet trust. Peace has already confirmed that the subconscious has received its command, and the law will complete the rest. This is the true maturity of faith, knowing when to stop and keeping silent when the work is finished. And as with every seed, the harvest comes in its season. You need not know how. You need only know it is certain. Peace is the inward evidence, and from that evidence, outward results will unfold. This is a spiritual law that never fails. Chapter 11, when nothing appears, there are seasons when you look around and nothing seems to have changed. You have prayed, affirmed, planted the image into the subconscious, yet the outer world remains silent. This is the moment when discouragement whispers that perhaps nothing works, but in the realm of spirit, this is not delay. It is the sacred pregnancy, like a seed buried in the soil, still yet never idle. Life within is stirring, waiting for its appointed season to break forth. In this stage, the discipline of gratitude becomes essential. Gratitude is more than emotion. It is the confirmation that you have received. When you give thanks for what is not yet visible, you prove that you trust the unseen law more than the visible fact. Each silent word of thanks is like a drop of water nourishing the seed underground. No one sees, no one hears, but the subconscious registers and continues its work. A young man seeking employment walked through such a season. He had sent dozens of applications, yet heard nothing. Daily he affirmed, "I have a good job." Asterisk, but inwardly he was restless. I urged him to change his stance. Instead of continually asking, begin thanking. Each morning he closed his eyes, breathed deeply, and whispered, "Thank you for my perfect work." Ora dimine. Asterisk. He pictured himself stepping into a new office, shaking hands with colleagues, feeling joy overflow, and then he released it in peace. Within 2 weeks, he was called to an interview and soon after secured the very position he had imagined. What shifted was not circumstance first, but his state from lack to gratitude. This is the power of the voice within. Not just words you mutter, but the silent space you return to daily in that inner sanctuary. You no longer need external proof, for peace and gratitude themselves are the inward evidence that the desire has already taken shape. You must remember, the absence of evidence is not the absence of action. The subconscious acts in silence beneath the surface where the eye cannot see. When you plant a seed, you do not see the roots forming, but, the earth is at work. So when no result is visible, do not assume the law is idle. It is working unseen, awaiting its time to manifest. The span between sowing and harvest is the proving ground of faith, where you must decide whether to keep believing or retreat to doubt. When you understand this, you cease to fear the silence. You see it as proof that the invisible process is underway. Instead of impatience, you give thanks. Instead of checking, you relax. Instead of pleading, you live as though it were already done. This posture clears the soil of anxiety and impatience, giving the seed its chance to grow. When nothing appears, focus on what is changing in you. Perhaps the outer result has not shown itself, but have you noticed less worry, more trust, deeper gratitude? These inner changes are the truest evidence you are on the right path. And when the soul is ripe, the outer result will appear as surely as shadow follows form. The discipline of gratitude is not merely a spiritual exercise. It is a way of life. Each morning you awaken, give thanks for the day, for breath, for health. Each evening you rest, give thanks for the experiences, the lessons, the life still flowing. When gratitude becomes habit, you are continually affirming to the subconscious that life is already abundant, and the law, faithful as ever, brings more evidence of that abundance. So if today the world seems still, remember it is only the shell of earth shielding the seed. Do not grow restless. Do not doubt. Keep watering with gratitude. Live as though it is already yours. The absence of evidence is not the absence of action. It is proof that the law is at work in silence. Peace and gratitude are the breath of this stage, and if you hold them steady, the harvest will arrive in its season, not a second late. Chapter 12, The Error of Emergency Treatment. One of the most subtle yet dangerous mistakes in spiritual healing is attempting treatment in a state of urgency. Urgency here is not merely the desire for quick results, but the agitation born of fear and lack. When you pray with a trembling heart, when you affirm through anxious tears, you are sending the subconscious a false message. The subconscious does not hear your words. It receives your feeling, and the feeling of urgency is always the signal of lack. If you say, times I am healthy, times but inwardly fear disease, the subconscious records disease. If you say, times I am prosperous, times, but your heart trembles over unpaid bills, the subconscious hears poverty. This is why desperate prayers so often go unanswered. Urgency is faith in lack. Call it by any name you will. It is misplaced belief. It is faith in sickness over health, faith in worry over supply. For this reason, the golden rule of spiritual healing is never treat while in despair. If your heart is in turmoil, stop, breathe. Let the mind return to stillness. Only when you are calm can you plant a right impression in the subconscious. This may sound paradoxical, but it is the key. Many think that in the hour of crisis they must pray harder. In truth, the more urgent you feel, the more likely you are to sow the wrong seed. To treat in desperation is to cast seed upon dry rock, where nothing can grow. You must first prepare the soil by stillness, by trust. When the heart is quiet and the emotion shifted, then the affirmation takes root. This practice rests on a vital principle. I am asterisk. When you affirm times I am asterisk, you no longer stand in want. You stand in identity. I am health. I am prosperity. I am peace. Asterisk. These are not wishes, but declarations from the center. When you are truly centered, free of anxiety and urgency, the affirmation times I am times becomes a decree to the subconscious. It is no longer the cry of a beggar, but the voice of one who possesses. There was a mother who prayed day and night for her sick daughter. She prayed through tears, affirmed through fear. Trembling at the thought of loss, nothing changed. Only when she learned to release whispering instead, "The life of God is active in my child. I trust times," did her inner state shift, no longer desperate, but quiet. And from that moment, her daughter's health began to improve. The change lay not in the number of prayers, but in the foundation of emotion. From urgency to trust, this golden rule must be engraved. Never treat while in despair. If you feel your heart surging with fear, do not sow in that moment. Step outside, breathe deeply, walk in nature, or simply sit still and whisper, "All is in the hands of infinite wisdom." Asterisk when peace returns. Then affirm and imagine. At that point, one short affirmation is enough to become a clear command to the subconscious. Remember, the seed must be sown in fertile soil, not in dry stone. The urgent mind is barren ground. It resists the spiritual decree. Only when you release and place yourself in the flow of trust does the seed root and sprout. And then results come, not because you strained, but because you sowed rightly. Never let fear push you into prayer. Let faith lead you into affirmation. Do not say, "I must be saved." Asterisk, say, "I am saved." Asterisk, do not say, "I hope for health." Asterisk, say, "I am health." Asterisk, do not say, "I worry for tomorrow." Asterisk, say, "I live in perfect protection today." In doing so, you step out of the spiral of urgency and stand firm in the axis of faith. And from that center, every desire is born. Chapter 13, Substitutionary Treatment and the Silent Seal. There are times when a person's mind is so agitated, the heart so burdened, that they cannot treat themselves, yet the law of spirit is never closed. It can move through another channel, a calmer soul, someone able to hold the right image on their behalf. This is the principle of substitutionary treatment. One whose mind is at peace can become the instrument, the channel through which infinite power flows into another's life. But the condition is absolute: purity of intent, no mingling of personal anxiety, no prayer born of fear, only the vision of perfection held as already accomplished. Jesus demonstrated this when the centurion asked for healing of his servant. The servant himself neither prayed nor affirmed, yet the centurion's faith was enough for the miracle. When one steady mind stands in place of a wavering one, the spiritual law still hears and still acts. Substitutionary treatment is not bearing another's burden, but shining light, not suffering for them, but opening the way. The practitioner must enter a state free from personal worry, detached, unjudging, seeing only the perfect outcome within. I once knew a man who prayed for his sister, weighed down with depression. Each night he did not lecture her, did not argue, but sat quietly, closed his eyes, and pictured her smiling, stepping into light, engaged and happy. He held that image unwaveringly, then released it in peace. In time, she began to change, then recovered, not because of words, but because a spiritual impression was planted by a calm, loving heart. But once a treatment has been given, the work is not finished. A silent seal must follow, and it is as important as the treatment itself. This is the living in harmony, as though the desire were already fulfilled. The seal of silence is expressed in words, in the body, in daily choices. If you affirm healing, yet speak of symptoms, the next day, complaining of pain, you cancel your own work. If you affirm prosperity, yet continue to talk of debt and act as though in lack you unravel your impression. The silent seal means you rest in trust. You do not need to announce, argue, or seek proof. You simply live as though what you affirmed is already real. A man once treated for promotion. After affirming and visualizing, he did not speak of it again. Instead, he began to behave as though he already held the new position. He arrived on time, dressed more sharply, worked with higher diligence. He never told anyone he was praying for advancement. Yet his attitude and presence displayed the identity of the role. In a short time, the appointment was his, not luck, but law, the reflection of the identity he had already embodied. Another case was a young woman with social anxiety. She affirmed confidence and freedom, but in public her body still trembled. Her voice shrank. Her eyes avoided. Treatment only became effective when she chose to change outwardly as well. Each day she practiced standing tall, breathing deeply, speaking clearly. She behaved as one already confident. Gradually, the fear dissolved. The law of spirit works not only in affirmation, but in the harmony between belief and action. When she lived as though she already was, the subconscious aligned and made it so. The silent seal is not pretense, but confirmation. You are not acting. You are living from the new identity you have impressed upon the subconscious. When words, attitude, actions, and choices all reflect the inner truth, the outer result cannot fail to appear. This is the wholeness of treatment. Sow with image and feeling, then seal with congruent living. Substitutionary treatment teaches that one calm mind can help one distressed. The silent seal reminds that in the end, each must live in harmony to guard the seed until it flowers. Together they form the complete path. Faith sown, help given in weakness, then life lived as though it is done. Thus the spiritual law moves unceasingly, and life becomes a living witness to the power of the subconscious. When you complete this journey, you will understand that no verdict of the world can determine your life unless you accept it within. No lack can bind you unless you give it your belief. Every thought, every image, every affirmation you impress upon the subconscious is a seed of creation. And when you learn to sow rightly, to release in peace, and to live as though you have already received, then health, prosperity, love, and freedom will flow into your life naturally. This is not merely knowledge, but a way of living. Walk in this truth. For you are a co-creator with infinite intelligence, and peace will always be the seal of the miracles now taking form